In a previous video, I showed you the geometry of a teardrop hole tool for 3D printing, then made a macro to create it. But of course the objective is a tool for the grab bag, not a macro that has to be hand edited every time. But the macro does show that the computations of the shape are in principle correct. I won't put you through every detail, but I copied the rib thread in the grab bag, did a quick edit to replace every instance of the word rib thread with teardrop, removed a few unneeded helper functions, and changed compute shape to match the macro. The fixed radius and height became parameters to compute shape. I removed unneeded properties, leaving only the diameter and the height. I kept the code for the attachments, and only edited the create functions to not set the parameters that were removed. This way it keeps the use of a sketch as a template for free. To use the same debugging trick I showed you in the rib thread videos, I soft linked this into the macro directory for quick tests. So I create a new document and run the macro. That looks good. You'll notice the feature is named Teardrop because of the search and replace. It even has a nice new icon I created for it. So far so good, but the fused filament design module also offers 90-degree teardrops, essentially making the peak of the teardrop a little bit taller and more acute. It's a larger distortion from the shape of the hole, but it reduces the overhang the printer has to deal with even further. It's just a question of where your trade-offs lie. I'll open my sketch back up and see what happens when I change the angle from 120 degrees to 90 degrees. The larger angle used for computing the height of the base has gone from 60 degrees to 45 degrees. That makes sense, half of 90. The smaller angle used to compute the peak of the triangle has gone from 30 degrees to 45 degrees. That confirms it's definitely the complement of the other angle, not half. Looking at the construction triangles, that makes sense. I could just stick in alternative parameters for 90 degrees, but it occurs to me, why restrict this to 120 or 90? The two angles are easily enough computed for any arbitrary angle of the teardrop. Given those two angles and the radius of the circle, the rest is easily computed as well. Why not just do that? I'll show you the code now. It has a few other extras in it that I'll get to later. Just know that the code I skip over will be eventually explained. Compute shape has the expected parameters for radius and height. It also has theta, the angle of the teardrop in radians. It defaults to 2 pi over 3, 120 degrees. Finally, mode, which I'll cover later. First, construct the cylinder as before. Then pre-compute a few values, sine theta over 2 as sine val, cosine theta over 2 times radius as base, and tangent pi minus theta divided by 2 as t-val. The rest of the code is unchanged. The polypoints are computed the same as usual, and it continues from there. The feature has one additional property, the angle of the teardrop, which I decided to make integer. We don't really need to be splitting hairs over fractions of a degree here. Since this is in degrees to be more friendly, but compute shape wants radians, I added a simple helper function degree to radian. The underscore create function defaults the angle to 120 degrees. Let's see it in action. Starting in the part workbench, create a cube just so there's something to punch holes in. Create a sketch on the front face of the cube and map it to the plane face. Throw in 2 or 3 circles. Close the sketch. Select the sketch and run the teardrop tool. There we have our teardrops. I'll select them all and collect them together into a composite. Select the cube, select the composite, and cut, and there we have it. If I open the composite and select one of the teardrops, you can see that we have the angle parameter now. Set it to 90 and let it update just to see what it looks like. I'll take this other one and set it to 130. But I promised to tell you about a couple new features. Once I had all of this working, it occurred to me that there are other ways to deal with the overhang problem on a circular hole. So I added an inner bridge and an outer bridge mode. The inner bridge just flattens the top of the hole by cutting the triangular part from the cylinder. A bridge across is more likely to be done neatly than any overhang. But that means only a flattened rod will fit, which is probably not what you want. So I added the outer bridge. It just squares off the top of the hole, again replacing overhang with a bridge. A rod that would fit in the hole will still fit, but with small gaps at the top. That's controlled by the mode property. The property is an enumeration of strings that just gets passed to compute shape. In compute shape, inner bridge just changes the fuse operation to a cut. Outer bridge alters the poly points to draw a rectangle up from the base of the shape, exactly high enough to contain the top of the circle. I hope seeing a few examples will inspire you to create more useful tools for FreeCAD, either as macros or as features in a module. One of the great advantages of FreeCAD is that it is free software, and so it is open to this sort of effort. It really is community software. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video or found it useful, please like, subscribe, and share. If there's anything you'd like to see covered here, please let me know in the comments below.